Okay, there we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of the week. As you all know, it's on Wednesday. So we are continuing with our paper 2, which involves poems and short stories. So yesterday, I know we did a poem, and today we're going to look at the short story. Mindful of the fact that we have a lot on our syllabus, so I may not necessarily be able to go back to give you a detailed account of what the answers could be, but I will, by the end of the week, give you the answers of everything that I had asked you to do. So what I'm wanting or what I'm trying to cultivate is the culture of taking responsibility and going as far as trying to understand the content for yourself from the lesson we did yesterday. Ideally, I wanted you to have an understanding of a poem, of what you look at when you analyze a poem, and what is important that you need to consider in terms of the characters, the place, the setting, and all the kind of dynamics that happen around that. So, if you've got questions, or if you've got things that you'd like to know more, here's my email address over here so that you can drop me an email or a DM, and then we can take it from there. Um, so you know the drill of the way we do things in my class with teaching and learning reflections as to what did you find to be very helpful in our last lesson. Is there anything that we can do differently? And how can we improve our teaching and learning? This is important for us to be able to improve the quality of what we are doing. So the short story that we are doing today is Lamb to the Slaughter, right? So you make sure you read the entire short story as indicated. You will summarize your impressions and understanding of the short story in your own words, right? So let's go to the actual poem, the actual short story. This is the short story I want you to read. It's a bit long, but it's going to be the exercise for today's lesson. So I'll give you some time to go through the short story and we'll unpack it together. So basically, I want you to read the story and then we'll unpack it after. Because of time, we're going to have to read quite a bit fast. Right. Melanie, Mel, there is one who says that he can't get in and he's been trying to get through the class. What does he need to do?
I'm not sure. Is he trying to access it from his phone or from a desktop device?
Is it? Um, okay. All right. He says it's from his phone.
That might be the problem. They're obviously working on it, but I have sent the link to you. Oh no, that's not working. Wait. I'll send the link to you in just a minute, and then you can maybe just send it to him and let him try it.
Okay.
We just need to maybe bring that up with Amanda afterwards.
Okay. All right. Sure. We're about to finish this segment. Okay. 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 All right. I'm sure now you get the sense of what is going on in the story. We'll move into our slides. So what I want you to do is to summarize your impressions and understanding of the short story in your own words. I want you to do that, summarize your impressions and understanding of the short story in your own words. I'll put it back again. I want you to do that exercise. Sorry, it's not the correct one. This is a story. I want you to summarize it in your own words as to the content of what you read. I'm just going to scan through so that you remind yourself. I'm sure as you were reading, you're writing your own notes of what you're picking up. This is just to refresh and remind you. So your responses of the summaries, you can send them on the email. I'll have a look at it. This is not for test purposes, but just to help you gather the skill of being able to read a short story and make sense of it, and being able to give answers when you are being asked about that particular short story. Okay, because of time, I will leave this and go to my notes. So this is a brief synopsis. A synopsis is more like a summary of the of lamb to the slaughter. So the phrase "like a lamb to the slaughter" actually has a long and distinguished history in biblical and English literature, and you might have even read it yourself somewhere. When you think of the word lamb, for those who are into Christianity, Hebrew, and all of these other kind of religions that draw back to the Old Testament in the Bible, they would know when we talk about the lamb and how it's used. But they say that it has a long history that traces as far as from that. If you recognize that it's generally used to describe a situation into which a person blindly enters without any knowledge of the inherent danger, right? The same could be said for certain folks in Roald Dahl's short story, A Lamb to the Slaughter. So keep this in mind. The first thing you always note is the title. The first word there is the lamb, right? And it explains what the lamb is in this context. So the story's title also works as a duck double entendre, that is a word or phrase used in a way that conveys two meanings or its eventual outcome. The story opens on Mary Melanie, who's waiting patiently but eagerly for her husband, a police officer, to get home from work. When he finally does arrive, Patrick Mellon silently takes the drinks his wife has prepared for him, and even makes his own stronger second one. So basically here is that the story opens on Melanie. The husband is patiently waiting, who's patiently waiting, but eagerly for her husband, a police officer, to get home from work. So when he finally does arrive, she prepares the drinks, gives him more, and she does less for her. And the context, it's Thursday, and the couple usually dines out on those evenings. But Mary recognizes Patrick may be too tired, so she offers to prepare dinner despite her advanced pregnancy. So Patrick seems agitated by his wife's insistence on being useful and asks her instead to listen to what he has to say. He proceeds to tell her, though he never states it explicitly, that he's planning on leaving her. So this is the context of what's going on Thursday. Patrick is tired and she wants to communicate something, but Patrick seems not interested in it. But at the time, what is happening with him, he is wanting to tell her about the work that's about to happen. So in a total state of shock, Mary continues to go about making dinner, heedless to Patrick saying that he's going out. Coming to the first piece of meat in the basement freezer, a leg of lamb. She takes it upstairs for dinner. She finds Patrick facing away from her in the den and without a single thought clubs him in the back of the head with the leg of the lamb, killing him instantly. So suddenly realizing the severity of her crime, Mary quickly goes about covering it up. She puts the lamb in the oven and goes to the local grocer to buy vegetables to complete the dinner. After returning home and finding her husband dead, she calls the police, who are his friends, to the family. They arrive promptly and investigate. Tired and confused from their investigation, Mary pleads tearfully with the detectives to let her finish the dinner she was preparing. Out of pity for the one new widow, they concede. While enjoying the lamb, the men discuss the case, each of them convinced that the murder weapon, which has yet to be found, is probably right under their noses. So, this is the brief synopsis, the synopsis around the lamb, what the lamb means in this context, right? What is the message behind what is being hidden on the title? How is the title used? Is used, works as a dark double attendre, a word or phrase used in a way that conveys two meanings of its eventual outcomes, and then we get the context of what happens here. So who are the characters here? I want answers. Answers, please.
There's none in the live Q&A.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
They have, however, asked if they can send the stuff through to you on your email and your handles, and I did
Yes,
say yes.
that's correct. That I'm fine. I'm happy with that.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. All right. So the activity I want
Here
us
we
to
have
do.
an answer.
Okay.
Maloney and Patrick.
All right.
That was the only answer that came through.
Melanie and Patrick. Okay.
And Sam and Inspector.
All right. Yeah, they are
Yeah,
correct. It's Patrick and Melanie. The story revolves around them. So they are correct. But I'll explain as I go on through the slides. Right. So the activity, who are the major characters in the story? They've said it. Who are the minor characters in the story? Who is the story's protagonist? Is the protagonist a round or flat character? These questions as well, they can respond to them on my email. Okay. A second set of questions is what causes the protagonist to act out of character? What is the climax or turning point of the story? Why is the setting significant to the plot of this story? What are the themes of this story? Who are the major characters? Who are the minor characters? Who is the protagonist? And again, go back to the basics of what this word means: protagonist, main characters.
Anile,
Yes?
there's a question in the Q&A. What do you mean by round or flat? A round or flat character.
Okay, I'll explain to them.
Thank you.
Okay, so these are the possible answers. The primary main characters in the story, you are correct to say, it's Mary Melanie, right? She is the only character that is present throughout the entire story. Keep that in mind. So the main character here is Mary, who is at the center of the story. In every story, short story, there's always the main characters. It could be one person who is the leading, or it could be two people. But we hear and see in the story that Mary Melanie is the main character here. The minor characters include Mary's husband, right? In the way that it comes across when you read it, it may come across that there are two characters that are dominant here. But the primary person or the primary character here is Mary Melanie. So the husband is the minor character, as well as the policeman who came to investigate the crime scene. Keep that in mind. So Mary Melanie is the story's protagonist. She is a doting housewife, and she's also pregnant, right? So Mary's Melanie is the story protagonist, which also she comes with being a housewife and her being pregnant. So Mary Melanie is a round character, and she shows different characteristics. At first, she appears to be the perfect 1950s wife. She gives her husband a drink as soon as he arrives home, and she plans to make supper for him. However, after he tells her that he plans to leave her, something inside her clicks and she becomes a murderer. And that is how the round character is used in the context of this story. There was the person who asked about what does this round character means. In this context is that it shows different characteristics. First, that she appears as the old kind of laid-back wife, and then she gives him a drink, and then after the news, she then kills him. So the idea that her husband was planning on leaving her and her unborn child triggered something within her, and this panic and pain caused her to act out of character. And that's how these things are connected. So the climax of the story is when Mary kills her husband with the leg of lamb. Remember the title and what it means in relation to this. The setting of the story is in a town in America during the 1950s. During this time, there was a certain stigma on divorced women. The idea of being disgraced by society may have caused Mary to act out and kill her husband. So she was trying to cover up for what could potentially be something that was beyond her control. And again, the stigma of being labeled as a divorced woman, right? So common themes from this short story include betrayal and gender roles. Betrayal in the context of what her husband did. He did not explain the reasons of why he wanted to leave. Mary could have thought that it could be infidelity, that probably there was cheating, or for whatever speculations. But the leaving for Mary indicated a form of betrayal. We see here gender roles, that the husband does this and the wife does this. Like we see that Mary was cooking and preparing the drinks for the husband and all of that. So in this story, the husband betrays Mary by telling her the plans to leave, and she betrays him by killing him. This short story also illustrates certain gender roles, such as expectation for women to stay at home and cook and clean all day. I'd like to hear your perspectives and comments the about gender roles. What are your thoughts around gender roles? Do you believe that the role of women ends in the kitchen, or it's only limited to stay at home, cook, clean all day, and raise children? Are they those ones who believe that gender roles for men, they should be out and about to hunt, work, and provide for the family? What are your thoughts? You can write me a brief comment as a response to this. There's what we refer to as feminist people who are for women's studies or gender equality. They are called feminists. Some of them who really are for the idea that women cannot be reduced or limited to gender roles of staying at home, cooking, and all day. Then there's a word of what we call patriarchy. Patriarchy is a word used to define the privilege that comes with what it means to be a man, right? So if you're patriarchal, you believe that your wife or your girlfriend must do this, this, and this, and that, and that, and it's those roles that are predominantly um, for men. Men should be doing this, and women should be doing that. So if you have those kind of questions, or those kinds of answers, tell me. Basically, I want to hear your views around women staying at home, cooking and cleaning all day, as well as your opinions around men who have got to go and work and do all sorts of things that are mainly done by men. So these are the things that I want you to keep in mind. The climax of the story, what is it? It is when Mary kills her husband with the leg of a lamb. The story is happening in America in the 1950s. At that time, the context in America is that divorced women were stigmatized. So Mary could not afford to be one of those women who would be stigmatized. There's a whole thing about gender roles, a whole thing about betrayal. So keep those things in mind and go back to the main essence of what the story is about, which is the main thing I wanted you to get out of today's lesson on how to read a short story and how to pull information from a short story. That is exactly what I wanted you to do. The title, it's explained how it's used. It's explained the roles that play out, the context is laid out, and what plays out in the story, and the climax of everything that comes with that. So for today, I basically wanted you to focus on this short story. You can see it's long, but there are certain things that the examiner or your teacher will be asking for you to respond to, which you need to have a better understanding of the story itself, what is being conveyed, have an ability to summarize what the story means for you in your own words, and try to extrapolate the title, what it means, what is the content that is entailed in the short story, and looking for certain things like scene, the context, the characters, and the overall aim of what the short story is about. And that brings us to the end of today's lesson. So what I want to remind you about is, where is this thing now? So today we have our launch of the Wednesday motivation with Mr. Anele. I understand that most of you are going through the most. And so what we have decided is to create an opportunity for you to talk to me as a clinical psychologist. A clinical psychologist is someone that works with people that have mental problems, that have emotional problems or emotional issues in our day-to-day language. So you can see here things that you always hear at school, the stuff that goes on, those moments where you feel sad and down, those moments where you feel the world has just ended, there's no way out for you in life. Wednesday motivation is the idea that reminds you that there is life. You can be great. You can do whatever that you want to do. We're going to be talking all things around depression, around anxiety, around suicide, and all of those things that have to do with emotions, and mostly to help you on leveling up, on improving the quality of your marks and making sure that you do well by the end of this year. So don't miss out. Catch us tonight at 5 p.m. I look forward to seeing you guys and to actually interact with you. So if you've got any questions, you can send them. So what I will do, I will have a range of problems or requests that I will pick what is important or what is being requested from me, and we help others using those kind of problems that would have been relayed by others. So it'll be more like ask a man anonymously. You write something to me, I won't mention your name, I won't mention where you're at, but I'll use that scenario as something that we can use to motivate others who might be in a similar situation. I hope that it explains. I look forward to seeing you at 5.
Anele,
Yes?
one of the students are asking if you can just provide them with a link for the Wednesday motivation. Perhaps have it.
I'll ask Mikhail. I thought it's the same. And okay, they need to use the link, ne? Okay, because I only see hashtag lockdown is school. Okay, I'll check the
Okay,
link.
maybe you can look at on Anele's social media. Um, if at all possible, Anele, can you post the link on your social media accounts for them?
Okay, I'll talk to Amanda now.
Okay, perfect. I'll
Sure.
also attempt to see if I can find it in the list with all the links for today.
All right, I'll appreciate that. Thank you. We're done for today.